Thank you.
Yes, we are now.
Okay, good morning. This is the June 12th, 2025 meeting of the Southern Region Board of Review. This hearing is being held via WebEx video conference at the Perry B. Duryea Jr. State Office Building, 250 Veterans Memorial Highway, Conference Room 4A, 9A, Hauppauge, New York, 11788. The time is now 9:07, and this hearing is officially open. The members of the board are Andrew Hames, Erica Shaw, Richard Bavone, and myself, Robert Peterson, Chairman. The Department of State is Mr. Courtney Nation, and I believe CJ Ajoku is with us on the WebEx. Okay. We will now hear the scheduled petitions. When you speak, please address the board and give your name, title, and legal address so that our court reporter can have all the information requested. You may have to stop from time to time to consult with our technical staff. In making comments to the board, please provide a descriptive narrative on matters referring to your exhibits to enable the court reporter to enter these into the record. The first hearing is in the matter of petition number 2025-0047. Petitioner is Kenneth Schulman for Todd Summers. This petition pertains to an existing detached single-family dwelling. The dwelling is 1 story in height, wood frame, type 5B construction, approximately 1,520 square feet in total gross floor area. The dwelling is located at 2419 Riverside Drive, Wantagh, Town of Hempstead, County of Nassau, State of New York. The petitioner is seeking relief from 19 NYCRR Part 1220, the 2020 Residential Code of New York State, Item 1 of Section R322.2.1, titled Elevation Requirements, which for flood hazard areas are not subject to high velocity wave action, requires that buildings and structures in flood hazard areas, including flood hazard areas designated as coastal A zones, shall have the lowest floors elevated to or above the base flood elevation plus 2 feet, or the design flood elevation determined in accordance with sections R322.1.4 through R322.1.4.1, whichever is higher. Petitioner wishes to have a portion of the dwelling's lowest floor below the requisite design flood elevation. And 19 NYCRR Part 1220, the 2020 Residential Code of New York State, section R322.2.2, titled Enclosed Area Below Design Flood Elevation, which requires that enclosed areas, including crawl spaces that are below the design flood elevation, shall 1, be used solely for parking of vehicles, building access, or storage. 2, be provided with flood openings that meet the following criteria and are installed in accordance with section R322.2.2.1. Petitioner does not wish to install flood vents in an enclosed space below a slab on fill construction. Okay, you have the floor.
Ben Schulman, architect, 29 Lynn Avenue, East Northport. What?
Morning.
I think you pretty much stated my case there, but to reiterate, we are seeking a variance to maintain an existing first floor terrace, which was converted to a foyer. It does not comply with sections R322.2.1 and R322.2.2 of the New York State Code. These code sections require that structures be above flood elevation and have the required flood vents. The existing dwelling is located in an AE flood zone with a base flood elevation of 7 feet. Foyer maintains a flood elevation of 8.3 feet, and the main dwelling is a conforming 9.1 feet. The grade elevation around the foyer is 5.9 feet. The original 1-story dwelling is a non-conforming structure that predates the establishment of the Town of Hempstead Building Department, and the dwelling was built on a crawl space. The original dwelling was built with an open front terrace. At least 30 years ago, the terrace was enclosed and converted to the current foyer area. Foyer is built on a raised slab, and its finished floor is 1 step down 8 inches from the main dwelling. The reason we are seeking relief of the New York State Code is that installing the flood vents, the required maximum of 1 foot above grade, would mean that the vents would be installed below the concrete slab, which would not serve any purpose. Also, installing the flood vents above the slab would not meet the code requirements and would only serve to flood the main dwelling, which is currently above flood elevation. Since the existing foyer is only 8 inches below flood elevation, and since by proof of a letter that I submitted from FEMA that no flood losses have ever been reported at this property, even during Superstorm Sandy, I think the economic hardship to raise the foyer area above flood elevation far outweighs the benefit it would have. Take any questions from the board if they have.
So you're saying this foyer, the work here was done about 30 years
At
ago.
least, yeah.
What led to your coming
Yeah,
here?
to give you a little brief history, it seems like back in 2008, maybe there was a change of ownership. Another architect was hired to file a non-conforming application with the town of Hempstead. They found a numerous structures that had been built without permits. Variance was applied for all of those structures. For some reason, this foyer area was not addressed, even though there was a letter from the building department that it should have been. It was overlooked, I guess, by the previous architect, by the previous zoning board. So when my client bought the property, that came up when he was selling to the current owner, that the only issue left unaddressed was this converted terrace that needed not only a relief from the zoning board for numerous things, but relief from your board.
The zoning board called it a storage room, right? Is that what we're talking about?
Yeah, I think at one point it was full storage. They wanted me to change it to foyer.
Okay.
I think it's really just a.
I'd say part of it looks like a foyer, but the main part of it to the left is not even in the path of entrance into the home, so that's probably storage.
Yeah.
My first thought is flood vents are required in enclosed spaces, but there is no enclosed space below the foyer.
Right.
So therefore, that provision in the code to me doesn't even apply. And so there shouldn't be a need for a request for a variance to that.
Is that requested by the town, by the plans examiner?
By the plans examiner, I tried to state what you just stated, and it didn't go very far with the plans examiner. So, yes, I agree, there's probably no need for me to be here.
Well,
With regards to the flood vent?
with regard to the flood vents, but the other
Yes.
variance
Yes.
request, yes.
Is there a physical hardship to get that floor raised, that 8-inch departure to the
Well,
DFE?
the only way to accomplish that, I guess, would be to pour an 8-inch slab in there. And then if you look at the cross section, I believe there's about a 7'8" ceiling height in there,
Yeah.
which would reduce it to 7, which is still conforming, but not great. You'd have to raise the front door up. I don't know if there'd even be room for a header at that point. So again, since my client, I guess, would be responsible for those repairs, and I don't know if the current owner would even want those, it becomes kind of a.
I just wanted to get your response on the record because
Yeah.
it was sort of a rhetorical question, but there's also a drop beam where the roof transition is. So then there might be an issue with that beam in the head height as well.
Just seems like a lot of work to go through.
Yeah.
A flood, which hasn't happened to this point.
Yeah, and it would also put, well, if it wasn't concrete, it could be wood, but
It could be
that would
sleepers,
put sleepers below the flood elevation, DFE.
the DFE.
So I rather it stay as it is.
Yeah, I'm with you. I don't really take exception to this. Is there any other questions anybody wants to ask?
The only thing, this is Courtney, the only thing I think the plans examiner may have been thinking is that since the space is enclosed, the flood vents could go above
Above the floor.
the floor, because the space is below, the floor of the space is below the.
But I don't think that is the intent of the code. I think the intent of
I-
the code was basements or crawl spaces, not living spaces.
I agree.
That could have worked if there was an actual door from the foyer into the main dwelling, but there's not. It's just an archway. So that would just flood the main.
Well,
I would think.
Yeah, even with the door, unless it was watertight, that would flood any.
So this is just closing out the open permit from 2000?
Yeah, this is the last issue before everything will be legal on that.
There,
Understood.
there is water in that area, and so you're saying it hasn't, it's never flooded?
Not according to the records of FEMA, that no claim has ever been put in. During Sandy, there was no application filed with Town of Hempstead for any damage. like I said, the grade around is almost 2.5 feet below that foyer elevation, so,
Is the wall really concrete block?
yeah.
Interesting.
Yeah, I think the whole house is concrete.
Non-conforming house, so back then.
It's one of those Spanish style houses that doesn't look that way anymore, but I can see there's a similar one across the street, and you can see that it did have some charm at some point.
Is there any heating or any kind of electrical, like wall appliances in the walls in there that might be impacted?
I don't remember if there was any outlets.
If there are any outlets, they'd be above the DFE.
Yeah, no, I was really just, sometimes people put little fan coils in and they're electric and they could be low, or electric baseboard, stuff like that.
Yeah, there was no heat as far as I recall.
Okay. Anybody else have any other questions? Pretty straightforward.
Okay, that's fine.
All right, Ken, we're gonna kick this around, deliberate, and come back with a decision as quickly as possible.
Great.
All right?
I guess that'll be emailed to me.
We have to come back and we have to render a formal decision. So we're just gonna deliberate for 10, 15 minutes and then we'll come back and write it up and read you the decision.
Should I wait?
Yeah,
Wait outside?
outside, yeah.
Thank you. Thank you. So with respect to petition number 2025-0047, Mr. Todd Summers, petitioner is seeking relief from 19 NYCRR Part 1220, the 2020 Residential Code of New York State, Item 1 of Section R322.2.1, and 19 NYCRR Part 1220, the 2020 Residential Code of New York State, Section R322.2.2. The board makes the following findings. Number one, the subject dwelling is located in an AE7 flood hazard zone. The design flood elevation, for this area is therefore 9 feet NAVD 88 with the addition of New York State's 2-foot freeboard requirement. Number two, the petitioner has indicated that the lowest habitable floor of the original dwelling was built above the design flood elevation of 9 feet NAVD 88. This information is not immediately apparent from the cursory examination of the elevation certificate provided with this application dated 4/30/2024. However, it is evident in comments provided at Section D of the certificate. Number three, Section C of the elevation certificate for this dwelling indicates that its crawl space floor level is at an elevation of 4.8 feet NAVD 88. This crawl space appears to be completely enclosed, but is legally existing. Number four, Section R322.2.2 of the 2020 Residential Code of New York State requires the installation of flood vents for an enclosed space that is located below the design flood elevation in new construction. This provision does not apply to the main dwelling since the main dwelling is pre-existing non-conforming. Number five, there's no enclosed space above the foyer slab, and installing flood vents above the floor slab would be impractical. Number six, according to the petitioner, an alteration was made to enclose an open porch that had a floor area of approximately 10 feet by 13 feet. This alteration was not substantial, but was done without the benefit of a permit. Number seven, the floor of the enclosed porch is a concrete slab on fill. Its floor level is at elevation 8.3 feet, NAVD 88. This is a step below the rest of the habitable floor area of the dwelling and is below the state's design flood elevation. Number eight, the petitioner has provided a flood loss letter indicating FEMA is aware of no flood claims against the premises. This suggests that any damage caused by flooding at this premises has been minimal. Number nine, the local code enforcement official has indicated support for this variance request. So with respect to 19 NYCRR Part 1220, the 2020 Residential Code of New York State, Item 1 of Section R322.2.1, and 19 NYCRR Part 1220, the 2020 Residential Code of New York State, Section R322.2.2, the board finds strict compliance with the provisions to the Uniform Fire Prevention and Building Code would entail practical difficulties or unnecessary hardship, and would entail a change so slight as to produce a negligible additional benefit consonant with the purpose of the code, and would be physically or legally impractical. And the granting of this variance will not substantially adversely affect the Uniform Code's provisions for health, safety, and security. Wherefore, it is determined that the application for variance from the provisions of 19 NYCRR Part 1220, the 2020 Residential Code of New York State, Item 1 of Section R322.2.1, and 19 NYCRR Part 1220, the 2020 Residential Code of New York State, Section R322.2.2, be it is hereby proposed to be granted with the following condition. Number one, that in all other respects, the applicable requirements of the Uniform Code shall be conformed to. I need a motion to approve with this condition.
And he's so moved.
May I get a second?
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
All right,
Aye.
motion is approved. Furthermore, it should be noted that the decision of this board is limited to the specific building and application before it as contained within this petition and should not be interpreted to give implied approval of any general plans or specifications presented in support of this application. There you go, Ken.
Real estate attorneys will be happy.
Just so you understand that we had talked before about the second one not necessarily applying because there's no crawl space beneath the foyer floor. However, the way the provision of the code is worded, it could indicate that there should be a flood vent above the floor, because that's still an enclosed space below the DFE. So that's why we have to keep that other variance
Okay,
in there.
perfect. I guess a written decision will be forwarded to them.
Yeah.
Eventually.
Yeah, well, we're running like, what, 4 to 6 weeks? Yeah.
Okay, I just need to let town of Hempstead aware of timeframes.
The town can always call the regional office. Yeah.
Great, thank you.
Okay, you got it. Good job. All right, number 2 in the queue is 0335, which is Christopher Cariello. Do we have
Cirillo.
here today? Cirillo?
It's
My
Cirillo,
apologies.
yes.
President.
Joseph Bazell, the firm is Bazell, Blander and Visconti, 535 Broad Hollow Road, Suite D4 in
Okay, we're
Abington.
going to read this into the record and
Oh,
then
wait
we're
a minute,
going to do
we're
that when I give you the
moving
floor,
now.
okay?
Okay,
Okay, thank you.
Betsy?
335. Let me just get this pulled up.
We want
We're
to
still on the-
vote on
When it's muted, it's got a line.
If we can mute our mics, that'd be great until you guys want to speak. I'm just going to read this into the record. The second hearing is in the matter of petition number 2025-0335. The petitioner is Harold Gephardt for Mr. Christopher Cirillo. Okay, this petition pertains to an existing two-story building of type 1B fire-resistant construction and Group B business occupancy, approximately 3,440 square feet in total gross floor area, including basement space. The building is located at 166 Broadway, Incorporated Village of Amityville, Nassau County. Is that Nassau or Suffolk?
Suffolk.
Suffolk County. Okay, thank you. State of New York. The petitioner is seeking relief from 19 NYCRR, Part 1221, the 2020 Building Code of New York State, Section 1024.2, which states that the required capacity of exit passageways shall be determined as specified in Section 1005.1, but the minimum width shall not be less than 44 inches, except that exit passageways serving an occupant load of less than 50 shall be not less than 36 inches in width. The minimum width or required capacity of exit passageways shall be unobstructed. And 19 NYCRR, Part 1221, the 2020 Building Code of New York State, Section 1020.2, and Table 1020.2, which does not allow a corridor serving less than 50 persons to have a width of less than 36 inches. The petitioner wishes to maintain a corridor width that is less than allowed. 19 NYCRR, Part 1221, the 2020 Building Code of New York State, Section 1011.2, which states in part that the required capacity of stairways shall be determined as specified in Section 1005.1, but the minimum width shall not be not less than 44 inches. The petitioner wishes to maintain a stairway width that is less than allowed. 19 NYCRR, Part 1221, the 2020 Building Code of New York State, Section 1011.2, which states in relevant part that the number of occupants shall be computed at the rate of 1 occupant per unit of area as prescribed in Table 1004.5. The petitioner wishes to have an occupant load that is greater than that obtained by using Table 1004.5. And lastly, 19 NYCRR, Part 1221, 2020 Building Code of New York State, Section 1005.4, which states in part that the minimum width or required capacity of the means of egress required for any story of a building shall not be reduced along its path of egress travel until arrival at the public way. The petitioner wishes that reductions along the path of egress be allowed. Okay, gentlemen, you have the floor.
Thank you. The property that supports the building in this case is located in the heart of
You
downtown.
gotta state your
Village.
name, sir.
Oh,
You gotta
sorry,
state your
thought I
name and
did
address
that.
it. Thank you.
Okay, Joseph Bazell, the firm is Bazell, Blanda, and Visconti. We are at 535 Broad Hollow Road, Suite B4 in Melville. The property is located in the heart of downtown Amityville, which is on the South Shore in Suffolk County, but well out of the flood zone. It is improved with a small building that was built prior to CO requirements, as is most of the downtown. This application is really about dealing with existing situations. It has office space on two levels, plus a small conference room on a partial second floor. The total gross square footage is 2,792.84 square feet. The cellar area is 1,396. A certificate of occupancy was issued in 1998 concerning this building as it was converted to offices. It was originally built as the village library. A second, in 2008, there were renovations undertaken to the cellar, and a separate certificate of occupancy was issued at that time. During the course of undertaking some additional renovations, the variances from the state code that are sought today were discerned by the architect and the village. There are two staircases that go to the basement. The first is centrally located. It leads out to the first floor, and it is 31 inches wide. That was part of the construction of the original building back before CO requirements. Both of the walls on that staircase are masonry block, and they are part of the structural support of the building itself. So it's really not feasible to widen that central staircase. In 2008, when the renovations to the cellar were undertaken, a second exit stairway was added at the rear corner. There are two sections to it, a lower section running east-west, and the stairs turn to an upper section which runs north-south. That exit leads directly outside of the building. The lower section is 35 inches wide. The upper section is 32 inches wide. As a point of clarification, the plans do show some sinks. Those sinks are going to be removed. The original plan was to put a sink in each office. That was abandoned, but 4 of the sinks were put in. The 4 that are there will be removed as part of completing this project. All of the offices are small. Only one has more than 100 square feet. The others are generally 45.5, 46.2, 52.5, 63, 73. They're not big offices. They are occupied by small tenants. A lot of the tenants here are social workers. They meet one-on-one with their clients. There is one person who sells items on the internet, and there are a few estheticians. Estheticians do facials, exfoliating, waxing, threading. They do not do nails or apply any type of flammable material like nail polish or nail polish remover. They don't need to stock it. So the offices, given their size, they're called suites only for addressing purposes. They're not suites, they're individual offices. If the building is solidly constructed, originally to support the weight of the library books, it's an old building going back before CO requirements. It's had two COs in 98 and 09. The, trying to address the remaining variances would be complicated and expensive and is not reasonably possible, which presents practical difficulties and unnecessary hardship. There's also some hesitance to touch the structural support system of the old building because it has been up now for a century. Travel distances to the exit, even the rear exit, the furthest point is 75 feet. Anticipated occupancy is 11 or 12 feet. There are two exits, and these exits may not be 36 inches wide, but they're not tiny. 34, 35, I'm sorry, 32, 30. So central one is 31, the other ones are 35 and 32. It's a small building. There are two means to get outside. Attempting to address these issues is not practically possible. We have exterior walls of the building that we're dealing with. The internal walls on the central stairs support the building and are a century old. And it's just, and of course, the lot is, it's a small lot and it's in a downtown. So it goes back a long way, but it does provide, as close as can be reasonably accommodated. Aside from myself, the project architect, Mr. Harold Gephardt, is here, as well as the property owner, Mr. Chris Cirillo.
Thank you. Where do we start? In 2008, when the cellar renovation took place, what was built out in the cellar? Do
My
do we know
client-
that? Do we have that
My client did
information?
not own the building in 2008. He acquired it thereafter. Harold, can you address that question?
I'm sorry, what was the question?
What was there
What
prior to
was
this in
there-
2008?
yeah.
right?
What was there prior to the 2008 renovation?
All right, that's before Chris purchased it, and that's before he built all the walls, right?
There were,
Okay.
I think there were a few offices down there, maybe 4, 5, 6, like something like that.
All right, maybe just focus on the exiting. Was that second exit in the back constructed and CO'd at the time in 2008?
I believe so,
That
yes,
Yeah,
Yes.
that was part of the 2008 plan.
correct.
Because it's hard to understand with these drawings what's actually being maintained under this application. I'm assuming all of
Everything
these
on the
kind of
drawing.
fit out. Excuse me?
Everything on the drawings being, is the way it is.
All right, so.
Go ahead.
So like in that back stair, you're showing a header being put in with a wall enclosure that's post-shade and that looks like it's new.
That's what's proposed.
Yeah, that would be new.
That would be new, yeah.
So you're proposing that under this application to maintain the basement build out.
Correct.
Yes,
But the basement build out is also, those suite partitions are all being maintained under this application as well?
Yes.
Okay,
Mr. Chairperson?
yes.
Can you have them identify themselves? I believe there are two people speaking from that same screen.
You're absolutely
Yeah.
right. I think one gentleman, Mr. Gephardt, the architect, and I guess that's, would you like to give us your name, please?
yeah, my name is Harold Gebhardt. I'm the licensed architect in this business. But my project manager, Chris Cirillo, Chris Albino, is right next to me. He is the designer of this project and knows, the ins and outs of it.
Thank you, Mr. Gephardt. Okay, so basically the entire, except for those thick masonry walls that you mentioned that were around the existing central stair, everything else is being maintained under this application. In the basement.
The existing cellar walls on the stair are there now. They stay. Everything that's there exists other than that one header that's involved in getting to the outside stairs. And of course, there are some sinks that would come out.
Okay. So you have numerous deficiencies in the code. And I'm just trying to understand the path that brought you here today. So you're maintaining this build out that was done without the benefit of a permit. Let's just focus on life
Yeah,
safety first.
there was office space down in the basement going back at least to 2008. I think prior to that, but that's vague. What happened was the applicant reconfigured that space. He took out a larger bathroom. He divided it up differently, but so it's a reconfiguration of the space from what was there beforehand. But it was
So that's
office
where,
space.
Mr. Cirillo, in my head, I'm looking at this as doing like a plan examination. There's an existing building code, not just a new building code, a 2020 building code. So in the existing building code, you have to understand what work is actually being performed to be able to apply that code to that new work. So I'm trying to think, is this a level 2 alteration? Is it a level 3 alteration? What part of the code is impacted by what you're trying to legalize today? And I'm just a little confused. That's why I'm asking some questions. So, and Mr. Gephardt, I don't know if you had started with the existing building code to try and legalize this with the village? Or did you go right to the 2020 building code, which is really for new construction?
We
I'm
went right
just
to-
trying to understand.
We went right to the 2020 building code.
So we don't know the level of alteration, Courtney.
But can I
No,
point
well,
out something?
We don't.
If you look at your certificate,
One
that
person at a
you-
time, please.
if you look at the certificate you submitted,
This.
which was 2009-47, was issued by the village, it says interior alterations and toilet room addition to existing building to create telemarketing offices, in parentheses, level 2 alteration of existing building code of New York State. That was in 2008. So now, do you have a copy of those plans? Because assuming they issued a certificate, there has to be a record set drawing. I think what the confusion on our side is, at least for me, is that, can you show us what was approved in 2008 to what you're trying to do now? Because if the space was created back then and it had all telemarketing offices, what are you doing now that caused you to come here today?
We,
And my second, go ahead.
the number of offices was increased. We have an approved set of plans in front of us dated 3/31/2008. And it's approved by John Loria of Amityville, the building inspector. And all that was done was always a bathroom down there. There was a bathroom down there. We just added a few more offices, that's all.
But that would be important to tell us the story as to what was approved prior to what you're trying to do now, which is trying to help you in this case to be able to
Yes.
say what you're doing and what you're increasing to, well, does it still work? And then the second part, if you look at the questionnaire, the variance questionnaire form, there's no signature or document or any check marks from the code official, whether they support this application, whether they don't. What happened with that document?
That document was presented to the current building inspector for the village of Amityville. Mr. Loria, who was there in 2008, is no longer retired. The document was given to him. The application was explained. He was informed it was filed. I have not seen anything from him, and he's not on this call. I don't
Okay,
have
so-
an explanation.
So stay with me for a second. So if the village issued some type of comments from the plans that are being developed now in 2025, what are the specific, how do we get to where we are today to be in front of us? To where it was back in 2008? I'm trying to give you a path forward here.
Yeah, they never issued anything in writing. It's a small village. The conversations were verbal. Before I became involved with Mr. Gephardt and Mr. Cirillo, I then became involved and had some meetings with the village, the building department, and eventually it was determined that this application needed to be filed. They were given an opportunity to write things up. prior thereto, we even asked them if they wanted to spec out what the actual variances they understood were. That dragged out for a little bit, and then they said to have Mr. Gephardt do it and send them a copy. We did. The plans that you're looking at right now are before the village. Prior versions, which are pretty much the same. The header was added based on comments we received from Mr. Courtney Nation, and the sinks were determined to be removed irrespective of this application. But they've got all versions of these plans. I cannot explain why they have not put anything.
So I respect your comments and thank you, but how does the code official not opine on their
That happens,
job?
that happens,
Has happened.
it happens
Yeah.
sometimes, right? Courtney, sometimes they
Yeah.
refuse to fill it out. And then they still advance to the hearing, but, you know, it's happened before, but it shouldn't be done that way.
Look, I don't control the village. I have no ability
Understood.
to make them do anything.
Well, interpretation of the code is up to the local code official. And I guess, was the gentleman in place now, the code official in place now, the one at the time this application came in?
Yes, it is the same it's just been the same individual for a few years, post-COVID anyway. Then there was a transition period where there were several building inspectors, one after the other. This application was not pending during that period. And then there was a gentleman named John Loria who was there for like 30 years. And he was there in 2008. And he was also there in 1998. So the two COs were issued by Mr. Loria.
Is there any way you could share the screen on those drawings from 2008? That was CO.
Very helpful.
I would love to.
We have them right in front of us.
So how do we do this? Let me see. If we could show you what the difference is here.
Kathy?
Oh, you have them on paper? Yeah, I was wondering if you had them digital that you could share the screen.
All right, let me see if I can pull it off here.
Can you see it?
There it is. It's got the three offices, the open space, an existing storage room, and a little kitchenette area with a toilet. There's a little sink there. There's like a little kitchen. It was a little office area for, I guess, a company.
And what was the occupant load on those drawings? Do you have a number?
There's no number.
There's no number on the drawing.
So we don't know if really one exit was required or, and
Well,
that
there were
stair in the back
the
was in
two-
place?
The two stairs were there. The one in the center was there, and the one in the back was there. And we're adding, we're
Yeah, it is. It's
proposing
off
it.
the screen.
Yeah,
There it
we're
is.
proposing a header in the one in the back, so we get more headroom. So we're to code on the headroom by putting the header in. So there's an
You
existing
have to code on
stairway.
everything else. Yeah, you can't have a winder in the landing. It's too narrow. There's a lot of problematic things with this. We're just trying to get a handle on. So it was an occupied business use down on the lower level.
Correct.
The central stair existed at the 31. I think that's the number you gave us. And then the back stair was an additional exit out to grade. That was problematic, but is definitely better than not being there.
Was built original.
You guys can see
Yeah.
it, right? Everyone could see it.
Yeah,
clearly?
we got it. We got it.
Is there a sprinkler system in this building?
I don't believe so.
Chris?
No, there is not. No, when the building was built, I don't think they had anything like that.
So at this point in time, there's no formal sprinkler system in the building, correct?
Correct.
Is there a fire alarm system in the building?
Yes.
Is it a fully addressable fire alarm throughout the entire building, including the basement?
It's an interconnected fire alarm system, but it's not a central station monitored one.
And the emergency lighting, smoke alarms?
Yes.
Yes.
Harold, is it really a type 1B construction?
That is correct.
That's a heavy lift to achieve.
It is. It's all
It's like,
fireproof.
everything has to be like 3 hours plus.
This building's made out of reinforced concrete. All the beams are encased in concrete. Built,
And the floor,
it's concrete, it's reinforced concrete.
all reinforced concrete?
It's a heavy duty building.
It was built like,
I know, but
So
to
said.
classify as a 1B is, yeah.
it was built
Okay,
for the
so-
library.
But the partition, what's the construction on the partitions?
2x4 wood studs with sheet rock both sides.
And then it's not 1B building. It's probably a 2B. Irrespective of that, I was just curious when I read 1B, because that's something that is very difficult to achieve. Let's get into the life safety stuff. So what is the computed occupancy based on the code for this lower level?
I've
We
got
have-
9.3.
9.3 people on the
Yeah.
lower level?
That's what's in the, well, I don't, it's allowable occupancy, 9.3 people. As per 1004.5, that's what I have from Harold in the application.
There's a chart
How's
on
that?
the plan, a lower right-hand corner.
It says 19.
That's the actual occupancy that they're proposing.
They're proposing 19?
Yeah.
So business is what? 150?
150 divided by the gross.
And the gross floor area is what? 13?
Yeah, 9.3. Nine. Nine is the tabular.
How does that make sense?
Yeah, but there's 10 suites, so we're talking less than one person per suite.
So they're doing the GFA of 1396 divided by 150. And so that's something that's being contested?
They're requesting a variance to increase the tabular occupant for the space. So the space under the code could only accommodate for that occupancy, 9 people. But they are requesting this board to allow more than the tabular occupant.
Doesn't the code,
The code
Give-
allows an
Hold on.
increase of people. Occupancy, the code allows. an
one second,
occupancy
one second.
increase.
Mr. Gephardt, one second. Doesn't the code give the authority to the local to
Yes.
give them more occupancy?
Yes,
Has that been done? Do we know if that's been done? No.
they haven't done it.
So they're punting it to the board to make the call.
They're asking the board to increase the occupant.
And then what's the code requirement for one exit in a basement?
150 people.
Or 50, but there is a table that allows one exit.
106.2.
Hold on for a second, please. Go ahead.
And I believe it reduces that amount to 29
To
when
29.
it's not on the floor level that allows access out.
So in layman's terms, buildings with one exit, basement level, no more than 29 for one exit. And we have a benefit of having two options to get out of the building, even though they're both non-conforming to the code. And if we did it based on what's being presented at 19, we still can have one code compliant exit and would meet the code.
One code
Right,
compliant.
that's what I'm trying to get on the record.
Yes.
Okay. So you're proposing to put a header in that back stair and open it up? Is there any way?
That's
you
correct.
could propose to get that exit to be code compliant? Is that possible?
To make it wider is
Almo-
almost impossible because you don't even have enough space around the property. It-
The
Just
reason for that angle is it's up against the property line, correct?
correct. And
That
we are,
chamfer is,
we are taking away the little pie shapes on the stairs that are there now and just creating one platform, which makes it a safer stair. And also creating the headroom, so we have a proper headroom by taking those, that floor space way upstairs a little bit and creating a little bit more of a stairwell. But the width of it is pretty solid, it's pretty solid and there, I think, to stay.
So that 211 dimension string in the hallway there, is that taken to the wainscoting or the drywall?
That's taken to the sheetrock.
And then you have the wainscoting that's inside that.
On the
And
lower
then-
portion, I believe so. Below the chair rail, there's a little rail.
So you have 211, which needs to be 36, and then you have a 28 at the top of the stair in that back stair.
Correct.
Firefighters coming in for rescue conditions, I mean, how is 2'8"?
2'8" being,
2'8" instead of 36 inches, what is that? That's 32 inches.
and
According
how, what's the height, like the height,
And what's the height on?
what's the height on the slope? Yeah. Is that?
So-
where
That
it's
would make a
sloped?
difference.
Yeah, that would be
That would
determinant.
help.
We're also thinking about not just getting people out, is getting fire officials or fire emergency personnel into the building. So that back door, when you get into that door, what's the ceiling height of that run going down the stair? So we have a 32-inch wide run down to the curved land, or the winding landing. What's the height of that exit?
There's plenty of height when you're going down those stairs. Only when you get to the bottom is it tight. That's why we're putting the header there. So there's plenty of head clearance going down.
Can you qualify what plenty is? Can you give us a height?
Well,
If
I
you
think
don't know,
it's
you don't
eight-
know.
No, but it's greater than 7. I mean, I went up and down that thing. It's high. It's
Except
not
when
like
you
you're
get
not
to-
going into a hole. It's open above you.
So what's the height by the header? When you increase. the-
Oh, by the header, it's to the legal height of 6'8". Whatever the code is there, that we're creating that at the end. So that's the tightest spot really, but that's 2 code at that point.
You're adding 3 treads of 11 inches
Correct.
to eliminate the winding landing, correct?
Correct.
Okay.
And raising and getting rid of that wall above to create the headroom at that point to meet the code. Once you go beyond that point to exit the structure, it's much higher.
All right, so my point is, this was done without permits. Now you're gonna come in and you're gonna do some carpentry work to get that header in there. Why can't you get this thing compliant at 36 up, all the way up? And mess with those 2 walls?
This is,
Because
Then we have one code compliant exit out of the building, except for the width of the hallway there.
if you look at the site plan, you'll see that that wall is right on.
this is property line.
Yeah, it's right.
There's
the
an
property-
irregular, there's an irregular property line here. And those stairs actually run directly on a portion of it.
I understand.
You know,
Yeah.
and then there's, on the part of that is also the existing wall to the building, which is part of when it was originally built.
Yeah, I got
So
it.
there's nothing to be done on that wall. And so then when you get to the stairs themselves, that second portion, the portion that runs north-south, you're now hard up on that property line. You don't have room.
No, I
So
wasn't
it's-
alluding to doing anything with the exterior wall. I'm talking about getting the width and a code compliant stair with alterations on the inside of the building.
And so along Suite 24,
Well,
that
If-
wall,
if we're talking about the interior wall, adjacent, like the lower section of those stairs, I think that would be what? Few inches, 4 inches maybe?
You might have to cannibalize one of the suites.
yes.
Yeah, suite 24, like there is an interior wall there. That, the distance there is 2'11". So we'd have to bring it to 36 inches. It's 35 now. So we would have to move that wall for an inch. you know.
No, the 2'8" I'm talking about, the whole way down, getting a code compliant exit stair out the back.
Well,
Well,
the lower section you can do.
Well,
The
it's just
turn
that you-
and the upper section, you're now dealing with exterior walls.
yeah,
Or you're putting a header in anyway, right? You got a short header you're putting in, you could put a longer header in and get that wall out of there, because it's fat. And then put a
It's-
thinner
You
wall in
have
to
to
get
cut
your,
this wall.
Yeah,
You know what,
it is the wall that was built with the original building. That's part of the original construction.
maybe what
Yeah.
we could do, Mr. Chairman and Joe, maybe what we could do is, we can maybe, work with that exterior wall in the staircase going up. Maybe thin it out somehow. We'd be willing to do that.
This wall.
And then cannibalize Suite 24 to make the hallway wider.
that's what I was just suggesting.
I'd be,
You're asking for a lot of variances.
I understand. I think we could make that work. I mean, it's gonna be, it's a project, but we're willing to kind of make that effort, make it work.
Harold,
So
do
we
you
wanna,
think you
so we're
can do
looking to
that?
grab, we're looking to grab 4 inches from that thick wall.
You need
No,
a clear 36-inch width down, and,
What about the outside wall? Coming out this way, you wouldn't have it at the corner, but coming out here,
Go so thin.
I'd be
Yeah.
concerned with cannibalizing this wall.
That's
This
an
wall.
exterior wall.
Yeah, but it was
It's an original exterior wall.
we gotta talk one at a time, but, I don't really want to design the mitigation. I just think there's a project there that could get a code compliant exit out. And then the middle one is a benefit. It goes up to the first floor, and then now you're converging exits with the first floor occupancy, which I'm not sure if that's been looked at, but I'm sure it's combined under 50 possibly.
I'd like to see the door removed on this interior one, so that stairwell is open.
It is open.
There's a door here.
No, that's for a closet. Stair goes this way,
Oh.
and then it doubles back,
Okay, okay.
right? Comes up here, there's a door at the top.
Yeah.
And then they go out the main doors, which swing in, which if it's over 50, is supposed to swing out. So I don't know if that's been addressed.
Wait,
And that's the suite right above the back stair that,
this is going down. Oh, okay.
yeah,
It's going down to, yeah, this is going up to the second floor.
okay. And then back to Mr. Bavone's comment about the fire alarm system, there could potentially be condition in there to do NFPA 72, fully addressable within the whole building.
That's correct.
I'm looking at something entirely different, I'm seeing, except for the conference room up on the third floor, I'm only seeing one toilet facility serving the first and second, the basement and first floor.
It's one toilet on the ground floor.
Is that code compliant with the number of suites and people you have?
Yes, we could check that.
Yeah, I just looked at this thing for life safety, but if you looked at it as a plan examiner, just to look at it for code, I mean, you don't have handicap accessibility, like,
That's another issue.
Well, that's why I can't see
Like
how the
push
push
pull.
examiner didn't opine on this at all, quite honestly, and it's not your fault, so. You're here now, so.
I mean, exiting is paramount, life safety. But you got a lot of doors that were designed in here. You don't have the 12-inch push and the 18-inch pull. It's really tight. And that's something that should have been picked up with the existing building code. And anything new sort of needs to comply. Anything that was previously CO'd at the time the code was in place, then, you don't upgrade that stuff. But just back to the life safety stuff, I mean, is there any other questions you guys have with regards to the width of the hallway? I don't think it's an exit passageway, right, Courtney?
No.
It's not, so,
Corridor.
yeah, so I don't know about some of these codes we're citing. So it should be 44. Less than 50 is 36 permitted. And we have what do we have? 3'4" until it necks down to 211? Is that the worst case scenario, gentlemen? In the hallway?
Right now, the numbers that you see there are the way it is now, 31 inches up the middle stair and then in the back, 2'11", then 2'8" on the last 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6 rises, 7 rises up.
All
1,
right, so we
2,
have, we
3,
talked
4,
about,
5, 6, 7 rises up.
so we talked about the stairs.
Well, widening the stairs by chewing away, I guess we could chew away some of the masonry on the inside wall going up there to make it 3 foot wide instead of 2'8". We can chisel away, maybe put a header in and chisel away some of the interior of that thick wall and make it the 3 foot there. We're putting the header in to comply with the headroom in the back. I believe as for the suites and everything on the ground floor, that had a CO for it. I mean, that's kind of the way it is. It's been that way for a very long time. And downstairs, the additional suites, you know,
That's what we're getting approval for.
that's what we're getting approval for, the additional suites, basically.
Yeah, I think
Nothing's-
we recognize the point about the technically infeasible aspect of the central stair. So that's why I was asking and focusing on the back stair to try and get at least one code compliant exit out of the basement. The hallways are not much of a departure from code, right?
Yep.
So I don't know if we asked for the wainscoting to be removed or not to get to 36, so we're okay with that. The other sections of the code, we were talking about the occupancy load. Is the board okay with the 19 calculation?
If the exits aren't code compliant, no.
The exits aren't code compliant, okay. So that might tie into the requirement to upgrade to get the code compliant stair. Then there would be a potential variance for the width of the hallway. And then accommodating 19 occupants or not to exceed number, I don't know. So
What's the ceiling height of the basement overall?
Oh, we measured that. 8 feet.
Was that, I could,
it looks,
He said.
it looks taller than that in the
It's,
photos.
no, it's close to the 10 feet, Harold. Pretty tall.
okay, thank you.
I don't know why it's not on here, but.
We didn't
Any other
touch it.
questions?
I don't know.
I'm wondering if we should adjourn,
There are, I mean,
come back to address all
you
of
told us.
the code issues that are not addressed, accessibility, plumbing.
We've done that before. If we feel it's not, there's no path
I
to approval.
don't think we have a full picture here.
I agree.
Not off the record for a second.
No, unless you want to. Mr. Hames is gonna make a motion.
I'll make a motion.
I'll move that we adjourn this hearing to allow the petitioners to come back with a complete code analysis addressing all code issues, including plumbing, accessibility, what you could do with the stairs to make one stair code compliant or close to it. So
It'd be
we're,
great to have the code official on this hearing next time when you come back too.
that would be a
That'd be
good idea.
paramount, yeah.
Yeah.
We get in-
Mr. Chairman?
Yes, sir.
Yes, we would be more than willing to make that rear exit staircase code compliant. So we'll get the 36 inches, up and out, and we'll
Okay.
get the hallway to be wide, enough for it to be compliant. It's not a problem.
What are the requirements for accessibility down here? Now that you're adding, with the addition of the suites, is that a requirement?
I think we identified that and we feel that there's some code issues here that have been overlooked. And then we're asking you to go back to the local, review it with him, and then come back with those items addressed, rather than us doing some kind of crazy conditional approval. So we have a motion from Mr. Hames to adjourn with those particular reasons. We got a second by Mr. Pavone. I'm in favor as well.
I'm in favor.
And Ms. Chao is in favor. So I think with that directive, we really appreciate you working with us on that back exit, and I think that's really important. And then you need to flesh out some of these other code issues that we haven't really fully identified today. So, maybe get the revised plan back on what you're doing with the back stair, address the plumbing fixture count, which I think you're grossly deficient. And then the accessibility issues, maybe there's a variance request when you come back for that. So your design professionals are going to need to get into the existing building code or in the building code and look into all of those issues with the local code official and come back to us with a request. So we can take it all in. Okay?
Right.
So
Thank
that
you.
was the decision, and if you have any questions, I'd be happy to answer them.
Thank you.
Okay. Any questions? We're good?
I think we're good for today.
Guys.
We'll see you next month.
Thank you.
Thank you. Bye-bye.
Thank you.
Are you off the record right now?
My apologies. Purposely so. Okay, the third and final hearing is in the matter of petition number 2025-0405. Petitioner is Michael Bonacasa, architect for Michael Melillo. This petition pertains to an existing detached two-story, single-family dwelling of wood frame construction. The dwelling is approximately 3,110 square feet in total gross floor area and is located at 43 Cathay Road, Incorporated Village of East Rockaway, County of Nassau, State of New York. Petitioner is seeking relief from 19 NYCRR, Part 1220, the 2020 Residential Code of New York State, Section AJ 801.2, which states that additions shall comply with the provisions of this code, except where required by this section. Unaltered portions of the existing building shall not be required to comply with the code. And 19 NYCRR, Part 1220, the 2020 Residential Code of New York State, Section R322.2.1, which requires that buildings and structures in flood hazard areas, including flood hazard areas designated as coastal A zones, shall have the lowest floors elevated to or above the base flood elevation plus 2 feet, or the design flood elevation determined in accordance with sections R322.1.4 through R322.1.4.1, whichever is greater or higher. The petitioner wishes to construct lateral additions that are below the base flood and design flood elevation. Okay, Mike.
My name is Michael Bonacasa. I am here representing Michael and Anna Malone. They reside at 43 Cathay Road in East Rockaway. We're here seeking relief of section R 302.2.1, elevation requirements, the New York State Building Code. We are constructing a bathroom addition and a bedroom addition with a closet. The bathroom addition is 63 square feet, and the bedroom and closet are 183 square feet. The Malillos have a growing family. Anna is expecting their second child at the end of July. Her mother lives with them currently, and they have a son now, I believe is a toddler. And the mother is there and acting in a childcare facility. So what they wanted to do was create a space for the mother where she'd have her own room, and then create a space where she could watch the children in during the day. So the existing bedroom, which was in the front of the house, we left that intact. And we added a bedroom for the mother on the side with a closet. And we added a bathroom on the other side so she would have her own private area. That's the complete intent of the reason why we did it. I did look at other options of adding a stairway, 7 to 9 rises to raise the bedroom. It really wasn't feasible to do that. It created a functional issue for operating she had the kids downstairs and she had the bedroom upstairs. And then it was just an issue with the front elevation. We were trying to keep the budget down, trying to keep the elevation, that's in curb appeal. So it didn't really work. In either way, the bathroom would have been at that level. So that's the reason why we came in with this design. And that's why we're here, seeking relief. We respectfully request relief from this section of the code.
Okay, thank you.
Now, there's work also being done on the second floor?
Currently, the work on the second floor was split up into 2 applications because again, the urgency of the child coming. They did want to enlarge their second floor. So it's really a rear dorm on the house that's there now. So for the building department purposes, I split them up into 2 separate applications. The rear second floor portion of the addition is completely compliant with the zoning and the code of New York State. So we separated out the front so we can come to this variance board.
So the first part is already completed?
No, they're in the midst of that. If we,
Okay.
I'd like the contractor to roll right into this.
Okay.
It will be a bit of a, there'll be a bit of an issue because we're not going to get it completed at the same time. But I've spoken to the building department and they were okay with doing it in 2 phases. But we like to keep the same contractor to move forward into the front
Understood.
phases. So he's done with this.
Understood. So for the purposes of qualifying as a substantial improvement, does that work included in part of your
I've
construction
included that,
estimate?
I've included that number in the construction cost. Also included the evaluation for the land value and the structure value.
Okay, both applications,
Well, for the entire addition.
the entirety. Okay,
Yeah, I
good.
originally, Courtney and I went through that and said, can I just use the front? And he said, no.
Okay.
So
Okay.
yes, the entire cost of construction is based on both additions.
So just for the record, I think, I don't know if we enumerated it, but the existing floor is 7.5 elevation.
That's correct.
The required BFE is an AE9 and the design flood elevation is 11. So you're about 2.5 feet below,
Yeah,
right?
3.5.
3.5.
Yeah, that's why it became like 6 to 7 rises up.
Gotcha.
Took a lot of space.
Okay, do you want to just get into the calculations and the estimates? I know it's in the package.
So
There was a contractor estimate of, what, approximately 200?
yeah, so it's the contract estimate was roughly 200. The value was, I submitted an outside real estate agent and some online cost for the structure, the building and land, and I guess corroborated by the real estate expert and myself, which I consider a real estate expert as well, is that 1.1 million, and the land was approximately 40, the structure was approximately 40% of that from the destruction, so that structure became in that 600,
So just for the record, if we can get those
in that
numbers.
425 range. I had submitted everything.
Okay,
I'm looking to see if I have the,
so we have a construction estimate of 200K
yeah, and then the value of the,
and it was a
of the
real,
trust was 425, I think.
425, it was a
119.
real estate
So
appraisal?
real estate appraisal, that was here.
So it wasn't like a,
Well, but it was
Certified
not a certified appraiser.
It was a certified real estate broker page.
That's not a certified appraiser.
normally we see like a certified appraisal package that enumerates, identifies everything. So this was like a broker that said this is the going rate?
Yeah, he researched the going rates in the area. I had him come back and then he came up with the same, pretty much similar to what I had come up with originally. I submitted my letter originally, stating that I think I had the value of the structure, maybe $10,000. But
So you're claiming in the 38% range, less than 50%,
yes,
there's a 12% margin of error.
I don't know.
I don't know.
I don't think so. Not that I'm aware.
There is some subjectivity to it, right?
Oh, yeah.
And the dwelling was built in 1950 approximately?
yes, approximately 1950.
Is it similar to the other dwellings in the area?
It's very similar to all the other dwellings in the area. There are some major renovations in the area, but this is similar to the other dwellings. They've occupied the house since 2016. The question was asked, was there any damage from Sandy? My client was not there during that. I did reach out to the building department, spoke to the building inspector and the chief inspector, and they have no records of any damage. So I had my client reach out to some neighbors who were there, and I have some other clients in the area, and they said the damage was anywhere from 18 to 24 inches of water in these houses. So, but that was my client got there in 2016 when they purchased, so they had no knowledge of that.
Both lateral additions are slab on grade.
That's correct.
These are all proposed, right?
Yeah.
I just want to commend you for coming to this board as a proposed project, not a maintain. And
No,
so it's nice to see.
yes.
Put that on the record. Make sure Courtney hears what I say. Any electrical devices or mechanical that would be below the DFE?
No.
That we need to be aware of? So, but you're like, you said it's like 36 inches.
Where is the heating system?
Well, it's gonna be forced air, it'll be in the attic.
It's in the attic?
It's gonna be in the attic.
What happens with the receptacles in the addition, like the
Well,
outlet?
the receptacles,
I didn't allow for it, but I can have them raised up above you want them above the design or the base? The base,
above the design.
above the design.
It's supposed to be, and if it's proposed, then you can plan it accordingly
Then we will, yeah,
and you'd comply.
yeah, that's not a problem.
I mean, those are the typical questions that we normally ask.
Plumbing.
What about the plumbing?
Not an issue.
Yes,
There's a proposed bathroom?
Yeah.
Is it sewer?
yes.
Okay. You have any other questions, Mr. Pavone?
No.
Mr. Ames?
I don't think so.
Ms. Chow?
No, I'm good.
No? Can't make something up? You're dumbfounded? Think we're good?
I think we're good.
Okay, I think I asked my questions.
Oh, yeah, materials of construction. I looked at plans in detail, but what are the materials of construction for the walls and floors?
It's wood. We're matching what's existing there.
Floors,
Well, the floor is concrete. Floor is concrete.
concrete.
Floor's gonna be concrete.
Yeah, there's a requirement that anything below the DFE be water resistant materials.
I can do that. I can change that out to concrete block, or I can do that in water resistant. Would they accept water resistant gypsum board?
What's the exact language? Does it say flood resistive or what does it say?
You know what?
Like we've seen you use spray foam rather than bad insulation,
Yeah,
stuff like
I
that.
don't think my client's.
yeah,
Well, I believe the
definitely.
contract is proposing spray foam. I think he's doing that in the upstairs.
Yeah, something like that. And then with regards, I mean, siding is vinyl. Right, certain.
Yeah,
Siding's vinyl
vinyl,
on that.
siding's vinyl.
Yeah.
I think you would have to have where either,
I mean, I can do a dense glass exterior instead of plywood.
yeah, I think that at least up to the DFE. And on the inside, I think it's gotta be, water resistant sheetrock or something, what is the word again?
Flood resistant.
Flood resistant material.
Flood resistant, so-
But,
Yeah.
There's a federal pamphlet that tells you, describes what constitutes flood resistant materials.
So the decision will allude to that and then you
Okay,
can
then
just
we'll
make
just
sure you
follow
comply.
that, and we'll comply. Yeah, I don't think we have a problem with that. I mean, the bathroom's gonna be all permanent wood anyway. So
Yeah.
that'll be all flood resistant, that'll be all water resistant, sheetrock, and then
The only other thing for the record is I think the CEO was not opposed to the granting of the variance. I didn't.
that's correct.
Yeah.
I submitted that question.
Okay. All right, so
He
we're
is
gonna-
on, I'm sorry, Mr. Chair, he is attending, if you would like to call out to him.
If he likes to speak up, yeah, sure. We always like when the code officials participate. I don't have a name, I'm sorry.
Hello, sir. How are you? My name is Juan Garcia.
Hi, Mr. Garcia, how are you?
I'm doing well, thank you.
Thanks for joining us. Would you like to speak on behalf of the application?
Sure. I'd just like to make known that it's a very small area that's gonna be impacted. Therefore, I don't foresee an issue with it as long as he provides all the waterproofing that he has to do in order to comply with minimum standards.
Okay. We were just talking about that, so he doesn't have a problem with complying with that. Any other concerns?
No concerns.
Wonderful.
Thank you for
Well,
coming.
Thank you. I really
you're very
appreciate it.
welcome.
We really appreciate it.
Very welcome.
Okay, we're gonna go deliberate.
They haven't decided.
Anybody else want to speak on behalf of this application? Okay. We're gonna go on wrestle this and then we'll call you back in.
Wait, I'm sorry.
You
Thank
can
you.
leave, you can leave your stuff here, you know, I'll take it.
With respect to petition number 2025-0405, Michael Malillo. Petitioner is seeking relief from 19 NYCRR Part 1220, the 2020 Residential Code of New York State, Section AJ 801.2, and 19 NYCRR Part 1220, the 2020 Residential Code of New York State, Section R 322.2.1. The board makes the following findings. Number one, the subject existing dwelling was built in 1950, pre-firm, and is located in a flood hazard zone AE9. Number two, the existing first floor elevation is 7.5 feet NAVD 88, and the base flood elevation is 9 feet NAVD 88, according to an elevation certificate submitted with this application. The required design flood elevation is 11 feet NAVD 88 upon addition of the New York State Freeboard. Number three, the petitioner wishes to make two one-story slab-on-grade additions of approximately 250 square feet to the north of the dwelling. Number four, this addition will include a bathroom and a bedroom on the first floor. Other work proposed in this project includes adding approximately 300 square feet of occupiable floor space to the second floor for a new bathroom to increase the number of bedrooms and reconfigure existing bedrooms. Number five, the applicant has provided a contractor's cost estimate for the work at approximately $200,000. A valuation of $408,600 for the replacement cost of the existing dwelling has also been provided. This valuation was performed by a licensed real estate broker. And I believe the architect of record, right? Okay, number six, these estimates suggest that the proposed additions coupled with all other incidental construction taking place with this permit application are not considered a substantial improvement. Excuse me. Seven, compliance to R322 of the Residential Code of New York State would require elevating the first floor additions by approximately 3.5 feet above the current existing first floor elevation. This is functionally impractical as the floor elevations need to align. Number eight, the FEMA publication titled Substantial Improvement, Substantial Damage Desk Reference would allow pre-firm dwellings to have lateral additions constructed without the need to elevate their floor above the base flood elevation. Number nine, it would be impractical to incorporate flood vents in the proposed first floor addition as water will infiltrate the occupiable space. Number 10, the local code official has given support to the petitioner's request for a variance to uniform code flood requirements in this matter. So with respect to 19 NYCRR Part 1220, the 2020 Residential Code of New York State, just lost my screen, Section AJ 801.2, and 19 NYCRR Part 1220, the 2020 Residential Code of New York State, Section R 322.2.1. The board finds strict compliance with the provisions to Uniform Fire Prevention and Building Code would entail practical difficulties and necessary hardship and would be physically or legally impractical. And the granting of this variance will not substantially adversely affect the Uniform Code's provisions for health, safety, and security. Wherefore, it is determined that the application for a variance from the provisions of 19 NYCRR Part 1220, 2020 Residential Code of New York State, Section AJ 801.2, and 19 NYCRR Part 1220, the 2020 Residential Code of New York State, Section R 322.2.1, be it is hereby proposed to be granted with the following conditions. Condition number one, that the addition by itself, nor coupled with any other incidental construction taking place with this proposed project, shall not be a substantial improvement. Number two, that all materials for the addition and all new construction below the design flood elevation of 11 shall be flood resistant. Number three, that any new electrical or mechanical equipment and devices shall be suitable for wet locations and be located above the DFE of 11. And number four, that in lieu of flood vents, the new first floor wall shall be constructed to prevent infiltration of design flood waters while maintaining its structural integrity. I need a motion to approve with these conditions.
Andy, so move.
May I get a second?
I'll second.
Mr. Pavone, second. All in favor?
Aye.
Motion is approved. Furthermore, it should be noted that the decision of this board is limited to the specific building and application before it, as contained within the petition, and should not be interpreted to give implied approval of any general plans and specifications presented in support of this application. So you got your approval with those four conditions? No questions?
No question.
You're good to go.
Good, you'll send me, now you'll send me that section. Sorry. Great, thank you so much.
Thank you.
Everybody enjoy the